Hello, my sweet friends, and welcome to Kinda Shabby. My name is Becky, and I am so glad you stopped by. Today we are going to be using drop cloth along with stamps and fabric ink to create some cute little projects that I hope you'll want to try yourself. I'll also be suggesting alternative products you can use if you don't have the stamps. Well, there is lots of fun in store today, so let's get these projects started. I love a good drop cloth project, and today I have a couple of cute ones for us. For our first one, we are taking the drop cloth and we're going to make some stamped book covers. That is going to be really cute. Now, if you don't have the stamps, you could also use stencils, or you can find cute images like this on Graphics Fairy, and you can mount that onto cardstock and actually send it through your printer and print on fabric. And this is going to be used in a different video. We're not going to be using this one today. I took my drop cloth and measured it to fit my book, and then I left a little excess so I could fray those edges to make it look like fringe. I just think that is adorable. And then I took different stamps from the Rural Scenes and also from Reverie to create what I think is going to be just a beautiful little cover, very fall for our book. So I'm going to bring my book back in for just a second and place those images on the stamped side down and just arrange them to where I think it's going to be really cute. So now I'm taking one of the clear cover sheets that are in with your stamps, and I'm going to place that down and press on it so it picks up my stamps, and they will all be in the exact location that I want them to be when we go to stamp this. So I'm going to move my book. This was my front right here. And now I am using some Plaid Fabric Creations fabric ink. And I get this off of Amazon, so I'll be sure to link this for you below. This one is called Ganache. Pour a little bit out on my plastic palette, take my brayer, and just smooth that until I get a nice, thin, even coat on my brayer. Now I can take my brayer, run that gently across the top of my stamps here. And you want to make sure you get those stamps nice and juicy, because it does take a little more ink on fabric than it does if you're stamping on paper. So now I'm going to bring these back in and hover that over. And I am going to just walk my fingers, applying a little bit of pressure, but not too much, because you don't want to distort your image. You aren't going to get your image to be as crisp as if you were stamping on, say, a cotton muslin, because this is a pretty heavily textured fabric. Now we're going to lift up, and look how cute that is. I love that. Absolutely adorable. And I'm going to wash these off, and then we're going to place some more stamps and stamp the spine and the back of our book cover as well. So again, I have picked out the chosen elements from the Reverie and Rural Scenes stamp sets, taking my clear sheet once again to pick up all of those elements. Make sure my brayer's nice and juicy. And again, we're just going to paint a nice thin coat over the top of all of our little elements here. And these are just so beautiful. And once again, I'm going to hover over to make sure I've got it centered where I want it to be, and place it down and begin walking my fingers over every last section of each one of these stamps to make sure that I get a good ink transfer to our fabric below. And again, we're going to lift up. And look how beautiful. I love that so much. Now after this has dried for 24 hours, I am going to heat set it. And I'm just going to be tying this on. I'm not going to be gluing it down. We've got the little scroll work on the spine, and then we've got our beautiful little toile pattern on the front and on the back. How cute and quick and easy was that? Absolutely adorable. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next project. To me, nothing brightens up the corner of your couch more quickly than a cute little pillow. So that's what we're going to be doing with this project. I'm going to be using the Typesetting stamp, also some leaf elements from the Fruitful Harvest stamp collection. If you don't have these stamps, you can make your own templates using leaves from fall foliage that you have. You could also use stencils, and I picked this up at Hobby Lobby, and also letter stencils as well. To start with, I am going to be stamping out the word gather onto a piece of snipped and ripped drop cloth, and again I have frayed those edges to give it a little more interest. This time I'm using the Plaid Fabric Ink in the color Metallic Pure Gold. Now this gives a nice soft finish. It doesn't really show up as shiny metallic on this type of fabric. I'm also using my mounting grid from Iron Orchid Designs. And I get all of my products from my friend Kimberly at My Victorian Heart, and I'll have her information linked for you below. I'm applying some of that ink to my palette using my brayer, so I get a nice thin even coat on my brayer. Isn't that pretty? And I can tell I'm going to need a little bit more because I've got quite a few letters here. That's better. Roll this over the top of our letters, making sure we get a nice even coverage. And I love the distressed look of these letters. It's going to look really nice on that drop cloth. I'm going to hover over this to make sure I've got it centered up, and then I'm going to press down and just start applying gentle pressure to each one of these letters here. And I'm going to walk my fingers over each one of the letters several times, just making sure that I get a good ink transfer to the fabric below. And look how beautiful that is. I just love that soft muted color. Isn't that gorgeous? So we're going to set this aside to dry, and we're going to go clean off the ink from our stamps. Now we're going to come back and do the same thing to our leaves. Get a nice even coat. Press down and get that ink all transferred to our fabric below. And look how gorgeous. I love that so much. So we're going to let these dry, and then we're going to begin assembling our pillow. My stamped piece of fabric here is 14 inches wide and it is 5 inches high. And my pillow is 23 inches wide and 13 inches high. And I'm going to take my stamped word, make sure it's all centered up, and then use my pins to pin this into place. I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and stitch it all down, but you could absolutely use some fabric glue and that will work just as well. So I trimmed closely around each of the leaves, and now I've placed them around, and I'm going to pin those into place and stitch those down as well. But again, you could also use fabric glue to achieve this same look. I just kind of haphazardly stitched around the outline of all of the little leaves there, and that is really, really cute. I'm going to take the back and pin the front and back together and stitch about an inch all the way in and leave the bottom open. Then I can fray all around the edges just like I've done here. And I think that's going to be really cute. Glue would be a good option if you do not sew. And now I just need to get some polyfill and get to stuffing. And I make sure that I really get it into those corners so they're nice and crisp. And when it's sufficiently stuffed, I'm going to head back over to the machine and stitch this opening closed. And here is our super duper cute pillow. I love it. And I am going to take a couple of minutes and just fray these edges and kind of fray all of this as well. And then you'll get a closer look at the end of the video, but I just couldn't be more pleased. Well, let's go ahead and move on to our next project. For this project, we are going to be making a French market tote bag. Now you could start with a canvas bag that you purchased, but I'm going to make the tote bag, and of course it's going to be embellished in a lovely shabby chic way. So to make my tote, I have started with our drop cloth, and they measure 17 inches wide and 23 inches long. We are going to be doing French seams because this fabric does fray quite easily. So I'm going to use my clips and clip it on 3 sides. And with everything clipped in place, I'm headed to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch a 3/8 inch seam allowance. And with it stitched along all 3 sides, I am going to cut this seam allowance down. And I've cut about half of that seam allowance away, and I'm going to do that on all 3 sides of our bag here. So after cutting all of those seams down, I turned the bag and gave it a good press. Now I'm going to go back over to the machine and I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch seam, and that is going to catch those raw edges in there, so everything is going to just be nice and neat and tidy and no more fraying of those seams. So after stitching, that is what that looks like, and that's actually going to end up being the inside of our bag. And now we're going to box the corners. So I come to the corner and I open it out, match those seams up, and from the tip here, I'm going to mark at 2 inches. And where my 2-inch mark is, I'm going to draw a line straight across there. Then I'm going to pin it so it doesn't move on me when I go to stitch this. And then I'm going to do that same thing on the other corner, making sure that those seams are all going in the same direction. And I do stitch over that twice just to give that a little bit more security. So then when we turn this, we've got a nice flat bottom for our bag. And I'm just going to go ahead and give these corners a quick press. And now we're going to finish off the top and add our straps. I am using this gorgeous trim that I picked up at Hobby Lobby. That is going to be just so pretty to jazz up those straps a little bit. And I have cut both of these at 30 inches long. And now I am marking a line 2 inches from the top. And this is on the inside of our bag. Then from that 2-inch line, we are going to mark another line. So we've got our 2-inch line marked, and then we've got 1 inch above that. Not from the seam, but from the actual edge of the bag here. I'm going to make a little mark at the 5-inch line here. Again, from the edge, and not the seam, but from the edge, I'm making another mark at the 5-inch line. So after making all of your marks, that's how that should look. And you're going to do the same thing on the other side as well. And now you're going to take one of your straps and make sure that it is lying face up, going in the right direction. And you're going to place the strap where that middle of the strap is on that 5-inch line, right in the middle. Then you're going to take your top of your bag and fold it up there. And then you're going to take that folded edge and it is going to go up to your other line here. And I've clipped that into place. So again, we're coming up to this line, and then that folded edge is going to go to our top line, and I'm going to clip that into place. So that is what that side looks like. And then on the sides, fold this to our first line, and the top of that edge is going to go to our next line here, and I'm going to clip that into place. And then I'm going to do the same thing with our other strap. And I added a few more clips just to make sure everything is secure. And now I'm going to take this to the sewing machine, and I am going to stitch very close to this folded edge here, and it's going to catch in these handles. So I've got one seam there that's caught everything, but I did want to show you my machine did not like the extra bulk there at those seams. So I went in right above that 2-inch line that we made, and I just cut that excess seam off of there, just trimmed it right away. So now when I fold this down, my machine is going to be much happier. Now I'm going to come back and I am going to top stitch the edge here. I'm taking the straps, placing it over our folded edge, top stitching everything into place. So now that is what the inside of our bag looks like. Now we're going to turn our bag right side out. I love those fancy straps. Very cute. And now I'm going to go back to the machine and stitch a box around here just to reinforce those straps. So that is how I have reinforced the straps there. Now that our bag is all assembled, we can start decorating. The first thing we're going to do is get some ruffles up here. So I have snipped and ripped two 2.5-inch wide strips that are going to be 2.5 times the circumference of my bag here. Next, I'm going to go to the machine and I'm going to stitch down the middle to gather this into a ruffle. You can do that through hand stitching, or you could also just gather and hot glue to create your own little ruffle as well. After making the gathering stitch down the center of each of my ruffles, I'm then going to gently pull on the string and gather this fabric all the way down the length of my strip here. That's going to be adorable when we get these attached to our bag. And with all of my lovely little ruffles gathered, I'm going to be pinning the first one on and stitching it at the top here, and then I'll take the second one and place it right up underneath the first one and stitch that down as well. And again, all of this can be glued into place instead of stitched down. And it just keeps getting cuter and cuter. And now to finish this off, I am going to be using some stamps from the Pastiche stamp collection. But if you do not have these stamps, something like this large stencil would look really cute on there. Or this really cute stencil set that I picked up from Michael's, where it has the cute bird cage, and it also has cute birds and some pretty little detail there. Some very nice font for those letters as well. So there's lots of cute choices if you do not have this stamp set. So I folded the bag in half and made a little light finger crease so I could see the middle, and then I took some straight pins and marked the middle there as well. And then I centered the large bird cage onto my grid, so that way I can make sure that when I stamp it, it's going to be in the middle of my bag here. And once again, I am using the metallic pure gold fabric ink that we used on our pillow. Again, applying that to my palette, Smoothing out to get an even coat on my brayer. Lightly applying the ink to my stamp. Centering the design up on my bag. And walking my fingers over all the design to make sure that I get that ink and have a good impression onto the fabric below. And lifting that up. Look at that beautiful vintage looking image using that gold ink. I love that so much. I'm going to clean this off and then we're going to come back and apply a few more of these gorgeous stamps. To help you layer images, your stamps also come with masks, and whatever image you want to be at the forefront has to be stamped first, and I'm going to lay the mask over the top of my bird cage because I want my next stamp to look like it's poking out from behind the bird cage here. I'm actually going to tape it down at the top so it doesn't move on me. And now I can place down my roses and walk my fingers all over to get good ink transfer. And I'm going to pay special attention to where this stamp butts up against the mask just to make sure that I get even coverage, because sometimes it can leave a bare spot there. And let's take a look at that. So pretty. And I want to balance it out up here with a butterfly. And we are finished with our French market bag. I just love it. Now all I need to do is give you a closer look at how cute all of this week's projects turned out. so much for joining me today. It has been my pleasure to craft with you. Please subscribe for more kinda shabby, but always chic, crafty inspirations. And until next time, my sweet friends, be blessed.